Hello everybody and welcome to part 3 of the Barry Bus road trip. Again, I'm going to cut the long intros. I'm not interested. I just want to tell the stories to you guys. So let's begin. If you remember what happened last time, Natasha, Trevin, and I stayed in a shabby crack called the Red Door. Natasha got really sick and decided that it was time for her to head back to Oregon. Trevin and I then blitzed all the way through California, and that is where we're going to start today. So after Natasha left, Trevin and I made it all the way through California and got to a place called Yuma, Arizona. Now, I was really excited to be out of California. For a while, I thought that California was bearing down on me and making me not enjoy this trip. This is actually really important that I tell you guys about this because if you're ever going to go on a road trip yourself, you need to give yourself enough time to kind of get into the motion of things. I hated California, and it wasn't California's fault. If I can look back and be as objective as possible, I was saying that the cities sucked, and there was really nothing to see. I didn't enjoy San Diego or Chula Vista very much. I just wanted to get out of there. I thought it was the roads, I thought it was the drivers, but as I made it through, I realized that I was stressed out because I was in a new environment, and I wasn't really giving myself enough time to adjust. I just figured, yeah, this will be great. And the reality is, nothing really works that way. You have to kind of get comfortable. But again, when we got to Arizona, things got better. For the most part. See, in a lot of the spots that we would go to camp, we were veering off of the roads and heading on these dirt trails. There were rocks on the road, and as my van took a beating, my steering wheel situation started to get a little strange. What I mean by that was the steering wheel column had started to shake loose and sink down. There's a plastic bushing in the column that's supposed to hold the whole thing up that had kind of slipped. So now when I turned the steering wheel, it would turn and then clank against itself before it would actually start turning. So when we would go over any bumps or anything, we'd get this clank, 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 clank from the steering wheel, which was really annoying. So that already, I'm a little stressed out, and now this is happening. Either way, we get to Yuma, Arizona, and instantly we realize this is the city of old people. People come here to retire and die. There's not a lot of young people around this area. And so we're sitting there trying to figure out where we're going to stay for the day. So we stop off real quick. Trevin had decided that he wanted to drive, and when he felt this steering wheel situation, he was like, no, this is just not going to do. We're going to pull off somewhere, and I'm going to fix this real quick. Which made me happy. I was like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do that. I'd like to get this thing sorted out. So we stop off, and he takes the steering wheel column apart a little bit and goes in to try to fix it. He tightens the whole thing down and gets it back in its place, or so we thought. Now we're driving to our campsite, and as I would turn the wheel, it would flip the blinker system on or flip the windshield wipers on, no matter how I turn the wheel. So this was annoying because now, instead of it being too loose, it was over-tightened. But either way, we finally find this little OHV that we're going to camp at, and we're getting ourselves sorted.
I went to Phoenix, Arizona, all the way to Tacoma, Philadelphia, and LA.
Trevin and I are scouring the area trying to figure out what it is we're going to burn when we find this giant wood spool. It was just sitting there, and we were like, yes, we're definitely going to burn that. The only thing is, we can't burn that sober, can we? Is that legal? We got to be drunk for this. Trevin looks over at me and he's like, yeah. We definitely got to get some alcohol. So I said, how about this? Take my van, and you go into town. We're looking on Google Maps. 4 miles away, there's a liquor store. Go there, pick up some liquor. I'll stay here, and I'll get the campfire kind of sorted up, and I'll get food prepped and everything, so we're just good to go by the time you get back. He goes, sounds like a plan, and he heads off. Now, Trevin was gone for a really long time. I was actually kind of surprised. Again, he was only supposed to be 4 miles away. It shouldn't have taken too long, but the sun had started coming down. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so my van broke down. The steering wheel already has some issues, so now he's stuck somewhere and he can't move. And I'm stuck here. I don't have a tent. I'm going to freeze to death tonight. And I have all the food, so he doesn't even have food. I'm kind of stressing out a little bit, And like I said, it takes time. So you're going to be you might be in a place in your head where you're a little annoyed at the situation. It takes a little time, and after that time, things get fine. It becomes a new normal, okay? You just gotta wait for that. Either way, maybe an hour and a half, or what felt like that, passes, and I see my van coming back, and I'm like, thank God, okay, he didn't break down. He gets out of the van, and I'm like, hey, what took so long? That was kind of nuts. I mean, wasn't it just down the street? He goes, dude, okay, check this out. So he tells me that he drives down to this liquor store 4 miles away, and it was there. He goes inside and he's looking around for a little bit, and they don't have what he wanted. He wanted to pick up some Jaeger, and they didn't have that. So he looks on Google Maps and he finds out that only 2 miles away from where we were was another liquor store. He's like, okay, that's on the way back. I'll just go check that real quick. So he turns the van around, he goes and he checks that liquor store, and he's confronted with this sign that says liquor store coming soon. So it's not even open yet. It's like the building isn't even renovated yet, right? So he's like, okay, screw it. And he goes back to the other liquor store. He goes inside, picks up some tequila, goes back into his van, and before he takes off, some random guy walks up to him. The guy walks up and says, hey, buddy, you got a light? Trevin looks around for a minute and pulls out a lighter and gives it to the guy. The guy takes the lighter, lights up a cigarette, takes a drag, blows it into my van, and then looks at Trevin and says, I'm gonna go for a walk. I was like, what? What? Either way, Trevin's back. It's time to get ourselves some food, start taking shots, and light this spool on fire. And this was incredible. I actually couldn't believe how hot this fire got. We had to stand really far back from this thing and we were still burning. Like, it was really warm. We wondered how hot it was. And there was a point where we actually got to test that and find out roughly how hot this fire was. And I'll get to that in a second. So if you remember from the last story, there was a point where Natasha's chair had blown into a fire and I ripped it out real quick and burned my hand, right? Well, before she left, she said, Barry, you don't have a chair, right? And I said, no, I don't. She goes, well, in the meantime, take mine. I'm not going to use it. So borrow mine, and then you can give it back to me when you come back. And I was like, that's perfect. Thank you so much. So in the middle of this night, while Trevin and I are drunk, the chair does the same thing it did before. It throws itself into the fire. Like, these things catch wind like kites, and it kamikazes itself, and the fire was so hot that it just burned it instantly. There was nothing I could do. I mean, I couldn't have run over fast enough. There was just no way. So the fire just burns this chair, and I'm sitting there like, well, great. So now I have to go buy her a new chair before she finds out that I just burned hers away. Funnily enough, not 20 minutes later, Trevin sits down in his stool and it breaks. So we're sitting there like, well, I guess we're standing tonight. I guess we don't get to sit down unless we want to sit in the dirt. Okay, cool. So there are aluminum pegs on these chairs. Aluminum melts at 1500 degrees. So we took those pieces of aluminum and we threw them into the fire to see if they would survive, just to kind of get a general idea of how hot this fire was. It didn't take long before those pegs disintegrated. They were gone. So we're sitting there judging this and we're like, okay, that was fast too. So this fire is at least 1500 degrees, probably 2000, 2500. Like, I couldn't believe how hot this spool had burned. It was just insane. So there we are. Trevin and I are drunk. We're dancing around the fire because we can't sit down. And we notice next to my van is a field mouse just sitting there. Trevin and I are intoxicated at this point and we're like, let's catch that. So I put on some gloves and we're running it around probably for about what felt like 40 minutes. I mean, we were drunk, so I don't know, time, like, does it even? But we're running around and finally we did catch this thing. I grab it up and it looks up at me and it's like... The thing was screaming. It was like, I'm gonna die. But we're sitting there looking at it, and it looked exactly like the little field mouse that Scar catches at the beginning of Lion King. It was exactly like that. So we had our fun. We're looking at him, and we go and we put him down in a little, next to some bushes and stuff. And he just sat there. Like, he was so startled and scared. We could actually poke him. And, yeah, it was kind of interesting. I think we triggered the fight or flight response. And he just froze. So he didn't pick either of the two options. He just froze. The next day, we get up, we pack everything into the van, and we are traveling through Yuma when we realize that we need to fill up that 6-gallon water jug again. Luckily for us, Yuma had all these water stations all around. It was like 1/4 was 1 gallon, which was kind of cool. It definitely wasn't that exactly, but I mean, it worked. After that, we went to a Starbucks drive-thru. We wanted to get ourselves some coffee. And we're sitting in the drive-thru and Trevin is like, hey, do you think they would accept EBT? And I was like, well, I don't know. Every time I've gone to a grocery store and there's a Starbucks, they'll do EBT. And he's like, yeah. I mean, you have to have cold coffee though. You can't order warm coffee. But yeah, that totally works. So we were deciding, okay, let's give it a shot. We roll up to the window, and there's this tall, husky guy, black hair, clean shaven beard, and he's totally fine with helping us out. We're like, hey, we want to try and see if EBT works. He's like, I don't know if it will, but yeah, I'll give it a shot. He grabs our card, puts it in the machine, denied, doesn't work. He goes, hang on, I'm going to try it again. Puts it in the machine, runs it again, doesn't work. He pulls it out and he looks back at us and he's like, well, I could try it again. And we're like, no, dude, obviously it's not going to work. Like, no worries. He goes, are you sure? We're like, dude, it's fine. And so we go to pull out our wallets and he goes, hey, no, don't even worry about it. It's on the house, okay? It's on me. Don't worry, guys. And we're like, dude, that's so awesome. He's like, yeah, don't even worry about it. Like, that's so nice, you know? Like, what a good dude, right? He gives us our coffee. And we're sitting there like, dude, thank you so much. And he was like, no, thank you. And we're like, what? Thank me? Why? What did I just came here. Like, maybe he was just being polite, right? But it felt strange. So Trevin and I, we don't say anything to each other. We're driving away from the Starbucks. And I look over at Trevin and I'm like, did that feel strange? And he's like, yeah, a little bit. It did. I was like, kind of flirty. He's like, yeah, I don't know. I was like, either that guy was really, really friendly or he was gay. Like, he liked us. And Trevin's like, yeah, I think he liked us. I think he did. We're sitting there like, thank you for the free coffee. And he's like, no, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Oh, God. So at this point, Trevin and I didn't know where we wanted to go or where we wanted to stay. See, the thing was, we had our buddy Alec, who was going to be coming on the 18th, to go hang out with his family in Las Vegas, and he invited us to go with him. Now, we'd already made it to Arizona, so all we would have had to do at that point is just head straight up north, and we would have hit it. And, I mean, at this point, I think it was like the 11th or something, so we had quite a few days, and we didn't know what to do with them. Trevin and I were missing the woods. I mean, we're Oregonians, you know? You look around and everywhere you look is a tree, you know? And now everywhere we looked was desert. It was all flat and rocky and dusty. And we're like, you know, if we could find some woods, it would be warm, we'd have the woods, everything would be really nice. We could just stay and chill there for a few days, and then from there, we'll head up north. So Trevin and I are looking, and we're trying to find a place up north anyway, so that we're already making it on the way, when we find this little city called Prescott. I'm looking up pictures, and the place looks gorgeous, and I was like, hey, let's go to Prescott. Trevin's like, hell yes, let's go. We drove for almost 3 hours, and I was still annoyed because my steering wheel was now a little worse off. Not to be dissing on Trevin, he did try to help, but it was a little worse off than it was before. Initially, it's clanking against itself, and now every time I turn, I'm turning the blinkers on, I'm turning the windshield wipers on. I'm just sitting there like, oh my god, this is such a pain in the ass to drive. Either way, we finally get to Prescott, and it's freezing cold. We're sitting there wondering, why in the hell is it so cold here? We're still in Arizona when we look up the elevation difference. In Yuma, Arizona, the elevation is 141. In Prescott, it's 5,300. So we went up into the mountains where it's just really cold, and we're just like, okay, I guess we're settling down here. So Trevin and I find ourselves a campsite, and we're walking around, and we notice there are these huge-ass poops everywhere. And we're sitting there like, okay, this is the woods. Is that bear crap? Or wait, is it cow crap? What is this? Eventually, we ignore it, and we started ourselves a fire, and we cooked ourselves some really nice chili, and then we went to bed. The next morning, I wake up, and Trevin has disappeared again. And I'm sitting there looking around like, okay, where in the world would he have gone? We're in the middle of the woods now, so any direction, he's just gone, right? So I was like, okay, whatever. So I went and walked around and I started gathering sticks and stuff and started making myself a fire. I made myself some pancakes, I cooked some coffee, and I swear to God, I've never tasted coffee so good. Seriously, it doesn't even matter the bean. I'm telling you guys, if you put your coffee through a machine, you're ruining it. And I didn't know that for a long time. There is something about fire-cooked coffee that just, it makes it gourmet. Do not ruin your coffee. Either way, I'm walking around gathering firewood, and I keep noticing all these poops on the ground. So I'm traveling through the woods, just, on my way looking for sticks, when I start noticing these cows. There's a bunch of forest cows just sitting out here in the woods. This was awesome. Now, I don't know if there's like some sort of cow hierarchy, but there was this one brown cow, kind of like an orange cow, staring me down the whole time that I was walking around. I actually ran back and grabbed my camera and was filming them, and this one would not take its eyes off me, as the other ones were grazing. So, I don't know if they have like a lead wolf thing or something going on, or if maybe this one was just curious. But I wanted to make sure that I kept my distance because there is no way I'm going up against a 3,800-pound animal, especially alone in the woods. When I got back to camp, I had seen that Trevin had also returned. He'd gone on a hike to go find some cell service so that he could call his mother. I made him a pancake, and right after that, it started getting blistering cold, and it started raining. So we were like, okay, you know what? I like the woods. We both like the woods. Screw the woods. Screw Prescott. We're getting the hell out of here. Let's go back to Phoenix where it's actually warm. So we get in the van, and we're blazing down the highway. Now, this was easily the worst day on the entire trip. This was when all of my stress reached its peak, and it never got there for the rest of the trip. This was easily the worst day that I had to deal with on the road. So I'm sitting there driving down the road, and there's this storm, this freezing cold storm that we're trying to get away from, following us, right? So we're sitting there trying to run away from this storm, and we're just stuck in the cold, even though we're driving south. Not only that, but the wind is blowing on us like crazy, and my windshield wipers, one of them was being blown so hard that it was wiping off of the side of the van. Eventually, I got annoyed at that, and I pull over. My blinkers turned on automatically as I turned over. I get out, and I readjust the windshield wiper, and I get back in the van. About an hour and a half goes by as we're driving down the road, and we reach this rest area. So I pull off, and when I pull off and park the van, I realize that I had left my e-brake up that entire hour and a half from when I stopped to fix my windshield wiper. So I have just ground down the brakes on my van. So my steering wheel is screwed, my windshield wipers are being messed up by this storm, and now I've just ground my brakes out. We were at this outlook where you could look at these beautiful mountains, and I'm sitting there walking, trying to just enjoy them while I was on my way to the bathroom, and I couldn't. I was so stressed out and so pissed off. I was even sitting there thinking, I don't want this anymore. I'm sorry, Adam. Like, you spent a year and a half helping me, and now I feel like a complete ass because I don't enjoy this. I'm not having a good time. I want to just sell this van and just be sad. I was stuck in this, like, quit it all millennial mentality, and I'm not proud of it, okay? I'm not, but that's where I was. I was very upset. So we get back in the van and we make it all the way down to Phoenix, Arizona. Now, I was probably stressing Trevin out because I was just sitting there the whole time stressed out and complaining about it. Poor kid. He had to deal with so much, man. We get to a gas station and we fill up and I go park. Trevin goes ahead and goes inside the Kroger's that was there to go collect some things, and I'm just sitting up against the van, and I pull out my cell phone and I call my father. And I was like, hey, Dad. He's like, hey, how's your trip going? And I was like, dude, I'm not happy, you know? I want to sell this van, okay? I'm just done with it. I don't want it anymore. And I remember you saying that if I ever was going to sell it, you wanted it, right? He's like, well, yeah, I don't know if I have the money to give you what you want for it. And I was like, I don't care. Do you want it? And he's like, I don't know. You know, you'll have to give me time to think about that. I was like, okay, you have time. Think about it, okay? I'm going to go all the way to Florida and I'm going to come back. And if you want it, it's yours, okay? He's like, okay, well, just hang in there, Barry, you know? Like, everything's fine. And I was like, all right. I just wanted to let you know. Trevin gets back from the shop. He gets back in the van and we find ourselves a little OHV camping spot. And we go and we park there. Eventually things do turn around, but I'm going to leave it on a cliffhanger this time. Will our heroes survive the stress? Find out next time on The Barry Bus Road Trip. I'll see you guys next time.